If you've been on social media lately, you've already noticed it. The faces are changing. The pillowy cheeks, the overfilled lips, the frozen foreheads, they're disappearing. And the women who spent thousands building that look are now spending thousands more to get rid of it. This is not a small trend. This is a full cultural reset, and the story behind it is way more complicated than anyone is letting on. Let's talk about what's actually happening, because there's a lot that the beauty industry does not want you to know. For about a decade, filler was everything. Hyaluronic acid injections were being marketed as the fountain of youth, the non-surgical fix, the lunch break procedure that would make you look like your favorite celebrity. Clinics were popping up on every corner. Prices dropped, accessibility went through the roof, and social media created this feedback loop where the more enhanced your face looked, the more attention you got, which meant more people wanted that look, which meant more injections, which meant more extreme results. It became normalized so fast that people genuinely stopped being able to see how far things had gone. And then something shifted. The internet started calling it filler face. That puffy, pillow-like, slightly uncanny appearance that comes from years of cumulative filler buildup. Because here's something the industry was very quiet about for a long time. Filler doesn't just dissolve on its own like we were told. Studies have shown that hyaluronic acid filler can persist in tissue for years, sometimes over a decade, migrating from its original placement and creating structural changes that distort the face over time. People who got small, subtle tweaks in their late 20s were looking in the mirror in their late 30s and not recognizing themselves. Now the celebrities are dissolving. And this is where it gets interesting. You've watched it happen in real time. Major public figures, actresses, influencers, reality TV stars, faces that once defined the beauty standard are visibly reverting. Cheekbones are re-emerging, jawlines are sharpening, lips are returning to their natural proportions. Some are openly talking about it. Others are saying absolutely nothing, quietly visiting clinics for hyaluronidase treatments. That's the enzyme that breaks down hyaluronic acid filler, and hoping nobody notices. But here's the scandal that sits right underneath the surface of this whole movement. The same industry that sold you the filler is now selling you the dissolving. The practitioners who built their entire brand around enhancement are now pivoting to restoration. The before and after photos have just flipped directions. The money is still flowing, just in reverse. And if you dig into the financials of aesthetic medicine right now, dissolving services and full facial rehabilitation packages have become some of the highest revenue procedures in the industry. Make it make sense. There's also a deeper conversation happening about who set the beauty standard in the first place. The overfilled look didn't emerge from nowhere. It was heavily connected to the specific filter culture of a particular era, to social media platforms that were algorithmically rewarding a very narrow definition of attractiveness, to the way cameras and photo editing created a kind of face that only truly existed in two dimensions. Real human faces, with their asymmetries and natural movement and texture, were being compared to a digital fiction. And people were injecting themselves to match something that wasn't even real. The natural face movement is a direct reaction to all of that. It's people reclaiming mobility, expression, the ability to actually look like a person having an emotion. And it's gaining serious momentum for reasons that go beyond aesthetics. There is emerging research that years of consistent facial filler use can alter the mechanics of how your face moves, affecting muscle activity and potentially contributing to changes in facial structure over time. Some practitioners are raising concerns about cumulative effects that the industry has been slow to formally acknowledge. Patients who are coming in for dissolution are reporting that they want their faces back. Not a different face, not a younger face, their face. And there's something genuinely emotional about that, because a lot of the people who went down the filler rabbit hole did so during periods of vulnerability, postpartum, post-breakup, after a major life change that made them feel like they needed to look different to feel acceptable. The beauty industry met that moment with a needle and a payment plan. And now, years later, those same people are doing the inner work and the outer work simultaneously, recognizing that chasing an externally imposed standard cost them something they didn't realize they were giving up. The cultural conversation around this is also being driven by a generation of younger consumers who are rejecting the aesthetic entirely. There's a visible split happening in beauty culture right now. On one side, you have the hyper-enhanced, filter-forward aesthetic that still has its audience. On the other side, you have this growing embrace of what people are calling glass skin, natural texture, healthy aging, undone beauty, SPF culture. Skincare over injectables. The idea that looking well-rested and healthy is more aspirational than looking surgically altered. And interestingly, the luxury beauty market is following this shift. High-end skincare is booming. Brands that focus on barrier health, on collagen stimulation, on treatments that work with your biology rather than temporarily replacing it are seeing massive growth. The investment is moving from the needle to the bottle. But let's not be naive about what's also driving this. There's a class signal embedded in the natural face. Just like a certain era signaled status through obvious enhancement, there's now a segment of the market where the status signal is looking effortlessly natural, while spending significant amounts to achieve that. Subtle tweaks instead of dramatic ones. Skin treatments that improve quality without changing structure. The budget is the same, sometimes larger, but the outcome is supposed to look like you didn't do anything. So is this actually progress, or is it just the same industry cycling through a new aesthetic to keep the revenue flowing? The honest answer is probably both. For a lot of people, this movement represents genuine liberation from a beauty standard that was making them miserable. For others, it's just trading one external benchmark for another. And the industry itself is adapting rapidly, doing what industries do, which is monetizing whatever people are afraid of or insecure about at any given moment. What is undeniably real is the physical reality that people are dealing with. Dissolving filler is not always simple. It sometimes requires multiple sessions. The results are not always predictable. Some people who have dissolved experience temporary hollowness, unevenness, or areas where the original anatomy doesn't snap back the way they hoped. There are accounts from people who feel they've gone through a kind of grieving process, both for the face they had and for the time they spent not accepting their natural appearance. And there are practitioners who are doing genuinely important work here, helping people understand what has accumulated in their faces over the years, mapping it out, developing careful treatment plans, and walking them through a process that is as much psychological as it is physical. The conversation we should probably be having more loudly is about how we got here, and whether the guardrails that should have been in place were intentionally absent. The lack of long-term safety data that was normalized. The aggressive marketing to young people who were still developing their sense of self. The way social media platforms profited from the insecurity that sold those procedures. Because the faces dissolving right now are not just dissolving filler. They're dissolving a whole chapter of culture. And the fact that it's happening so visibly, so openly, with so many people sharing their reversal journeys in real time, tells you something significant about where we are. People are tired of performing an idea of beauty that never felt like theirs. And whether this shift is pure, complicated, commercially driven, or deeply personal, what it represents at its core is faces that finally move again. Faces that show surprise and joy and tiredness and the full, messy human experience. That might just be the most radical beauty statement of our time.